Now, in turning our criminal justice system analysis a little bit, we're going to turn to it. Evidence that legislation designed to help reduce the size of the federal prison population might not be working as well as hoped. Signed into law in 2018, the First Step Act has already granted thousands in early release from federal prisons, but civil liberties advocates are concerned that Black and brown incarcerated people are disproportionately being denied the same opportunity. At the center of the controversy is an algorithmic tool called Pattern. The Department of Justice uses it to determine the risk that a person might commit crimes after they leave prison. Now, critics say Pattern is over-predicting that people of color will be of high risk and diminishing the intended effectiveness of the First Step Act. Joining us now to help discuss the issue is ACLU Deputy Director for Policy, Cynthia W. Roseberry. Cynthia, welcome to Black News Tonight. At the center of this issue is the First Step Act. It's designed to help reduce the number of people held in federal prisons. Help us understand exactly how the law itself works.
Sure. Thank you for having me tonight. The First Act was created in 2018 and, among other things, created something called the Earned Time Credit. That's different from good time credit that most people know about. Earned time credit is designed to incentivize participation in certain programs that the Bureau of Prisons has. The problem is that the pattern algorithm determines who's eligible to participate in those programs. And as the old adage says, garbage in, garbage out, the data that's used in the pattern program is racially skewed against Black and brown people. So you have fewer people who are able to participate in the programs that would earn early release.
So the Justice Department, to be clear, is using an algorithmic tool. It's like a computer program to determine eligibility for early release from prison. Now, the algorithmic tool, which we call they call Pattern, help me understand exactly how this works, because I get the logic of it, but what goes in that prompts them to make the determination of who gets to leave? Is it personal biographical data? Is it kind of patterns around where you're from? Is it like general, like broader sociological patterns? Like, what is it?
So it relies on data like your arrest and your conviction record. And in fact, whether you've taken some of the programs that it's designed to say you can or cannot take. And as you might imagine, because Black and brown communities are over-policed, are more likely involved in the criminal legal system because of being over-policed, are more harshly charged or more often convicted, are given longer sentences. If all of those data points are used in the pattern system to determine whether you're eligible for the program so that you can be eligible to relief, then the skewing is in the data that goes in, because Black and brown communities are over-policed to begin with.
And how do they justify using the algorithm to make these decisions?
Well, some of the proponents say it's better than having an individual who might be biased make the decision. But the problem is that this is sort of the patina of science. It's not really science. It's just putting in racially biased data and having a program spit that data out. Another problem is we really don't have transparency around the pattern algorithm. So we really can't test it or validate it or know how to fix it. What we do know from the Department of Justice's own report is that only 7% of Black people in the sample were classified as minimum, which is what you need to be classified as to participate in the programs, while 21% of white people were classified as minimum. And so we think that's evidence in and of itself that the algorithm is racially biased because of this data.
Okay, Cynthia, this is incredibly helpful. And it'll be interesting to see sort of how we can turn the corner. We want programs, we want legislation that encourages decarceration. We want to get as many people out of cages as possible. At the same time, we want to make sure that there is a level of racial and gender and class equity when it happens. And so I'm grateful that you all are keeping your eyes fixed on this to help us get the kind of outcomes that we need and deserve. Cynthia, thanks so much for joining me on Black News Tonight. We'll keep bringing you back to keep the conversation going. Everybody, up next, we'll keep the conversation going with Cynthia Roseberry. We're going to discuss efforts to reduce the prison population in this country. combat mass incarceration, and much, much more. So stay with us and we'll keep the conversation going. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We now continue the conversation about racial disparities in the federal prison system's early release program and the larger question of how we can work to dismantle mass incarceration in this country across the board. With us still is Cynthia W. Roseberry. She's Deputy Director for Policy at the ACLU. Civil liberties advocates say the algorithm used to determine eligibility for early release from prison is flawed, that it's contributing to racial disparities, not just reflecting them. Do we have, I'm inclined to believe you, by the way, all the evidence seems to suggest that, but do we have any concrete evidence to support that?
Sure. The DOJ's own report shows that when they looked at people who would qualify for the earned time credit, the programs that could get earned time credit, only 7% of Black people included in the sample could earn credit to be released early, while 21% of white people could. And when you think about the fact that our prison systems are overwhelmingly filled with Black bodies, then you understand that the algorithm is racially biased against release, against allowing those who are eligible to participate in the programs to be released.
So the critics of your position are going to say the reason that more Black people are ineligible and the reason more white people are is the same reason why there's disproportionality in incarceration in the first place. Us Black folk keep doing all the stuff. We commit all the crimes and we refuse to do the programs and we have more arrests and all these things. And so how do we develop the kind of language and the analysis that we can push back against those claims who say the reason Black people aren't getting out as much is the same reason that y'all keep going in so much?
That's exactly right. So listen, America either has to admit that we have a racially biased justice system, or it has to admit that it thinks Black people are more criminal, and we are not. The truth is there are more police officers in our community. We are being arrested more often for the similar crimes that white people also commit. We are charged more harshly. We get convicted more often, and we get sentenced more harshly. And now, with this racist pattern algorithm, we are less likely to be released as well. So the system itself has a racial bias. It's not that we are more criminal or commit more crimes. And listen, we know this from the war on drugs, right? When John Ehrlichman, Nixon's aide, said that they intended this to be aimed at Black people, that it was meant to disrupt Black communities, that you could put being arrested on the news every night and therefore criminalize Black people, even while you couldn't criminalize Blackness itself.
Wow. Now, what is the ACLU doing to fix this pattern algorithm? Is the idea to discredit the algorithm, get rid of it, discard it, and start implement something else? Or is it possible to develop an algorithm that is more appropriately reflective of our circumstances and conditions and that could yield the kind of outcomes that we want?
You know how we could better answer that question? If there was transparency around how the algorithm was created, if there was transparency around whether and how it was validated. But we can't answer whether it can be fixed. We know that the outcomes are not good. So the Department of Justice needs to be more transparent about the algorithm and the company that was contracted to create the algorithm and what they try to hide as proprietary language and systems around the algorithm. Frankly, I'm not sure that there's a technical fix to it because, as I mentioned earlier, if you put in racially biased data, what you're going to get out is that same racially biased outcome.
Makes sense. Racism in, racism out. Let me take a step back for a second. How do we combat mass incarceration at a policy level and prevent many people from going to prison in the first place? You know, I come out of an abolitionist tradition, and so for me, the question is not a reform question, but a more fundamental question about how do we create a world where prisons are no longer needed. And even for people who aren't at the abolitionist place yet, I think that there's some agreement, even on the right, at least there was, that at the very least, mass incarceration is bad for business. So whether you believe that prison is bad for business, whether you believe that it's a moral atrocity, whether you believe that it's a fundamentally racist practice, whatever your reason is for not wanting this, reducing the numbers of people in prison seems like a good goal. How do we do that in a systematically sort of consistent way across the board?
Yeah, so the criminal legal system stands at the intersection of all of the other systems that have racial bias, right? Education, finance, housing, jobs, you name it. But to work within this system, there are a lot of tools that we have. For example, the ACLU has a redemption campaign that calls on President Biden to look at the nearly 160,000 federal prisoners who are disproportionately people of color, and use that Article 2 constitutional power to release people. For example, you could release elderly people since there's no longer any federal probation or parole. You could release people who were sentenced under so-called old laws that haven't been revised. You could release people who were in prison in what we now know is a race-based war on drugs. Let's have an end to the war on drugs. All cannabis offenses. Now the states are largely refining their laws to legalize marijuana, yet people are languishing in prison under the federal cannabis laws at the same time. And also there's a little known population of prisoners who are there for technical violations. Technical violations don't necessarily include a violation of the law, but it's a violation of some rule that was set upon a person when they were released. So, for example, you could be late for an appointment with your probation officer, and that could be a technical violation that could land you back in prison. There are a number of other fixes, too, that I'm happy to talk about.
I mean, some people are proposing fixes at the legislative level. For example, passing Senator Cory Booker's Equal Act that would end biased drug sentencing laws. Do you see that as a worthwhile front to fight on?
Absolutely. In the 90s, 35 years ago, Congress enacted this law that said that there was a 100-to-1 ratio between powder and crack cocaine for the purposes of sentencing, without any scientific basis for that. But we know that crack cocaine was largely used more in Black communities, and powder cocaine, and I'm generalizing here, was used more largely in white communities. And so it was recently reduced to 18-to-1 under President Obama, who signed into law the Fair Sentencing Act. What Senator Booker's Equal Act would do, make it equal, would make it 1-to-1 ratio, because the chemical makeup is not different. There's no basis for having a difference in sentencing. And what that would mean is that, for example, in 2020, 77% of individuals convicted of crack cocaine offenses were Black, while historic data tells us that 66% of crack cocaine users are white or Hispanic. So you can see the difference it makes if we just equalize that.
That's a heck of a place to start, and we have to start somewhere. And I think what makes the work of the ACLU so interesting is that you're actually starting not in one place, but across multiple fronts. And it's such important work and such valuable work, and I'm grateful for it. Cynthia Roseberry, thank you so much for joining me on Black News tonight and sharing your valuable insights on this critically important issue.